Welcome back to New York's Business Podcast. My name is Jacob Restituto. I run and manage Restituto Media, as well as being the host here. Today I'm with the CEO of Northwell Health, New York's largest employer, as well as New York's largest healthcare provider. So, Mr. Michael Dowling, I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. I'm Mike Dowling. I'm the President and CEO of Northwell Health, and I thank you for the opportunity to have a discussion with you. Looking forward to it.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, for people who aren't super familiar with your story and who you are and how you got into the industry, could you give a little backstory on who you are and essentially what you do here at Northwell?
What I do here at Northwell, you should ask a number of people. Anyway, I'm Irish. I'm sure that many of the people in the audience were trying to figure out where this accent is from. But I came here when I was shy of 18. And I came here because I had to figure out how to make money to help out at home. And also I dreamed of going to college. So I wanted to come to a place where you could actually work and figure out how to make money so you can go to college. So it's kind of a long journey, but a very positive journey, which is what I tell people all the time, is that wherever you begin is no predictor of where you can end. So I started out working in the docks in the west side of Manhattan. I worked in construction. I worked in the plumbing business for a while. I worked as a custodian in some of the schools in Queens, worked in bars, went to Fordham University, graduated from Fordham, got a master's from Fordham University, ended up years and years later teaching at Fordham, became a professor of social policy at Fordham, became the assistant dean at Fordham. Good experience, then ended up getting very lucky because success is also part of combination of hard work and luck. You got to get lucky ever so often, and you got to take advantage of your luck, though. So I got a call to know whether or not I would go for an interview when Governor Mario Cuomo got elected governor, and I said, sure, why not go for the interview? Nothing to lose. I went for the interview. Ended up being 3 interviews. I was offered the job in government. I did it, and I ended up becoming the head of Health and Human Services for the state of New York, and becoming very close to the governor, was his chief advisor on all of those issues, worked side by side with him. I also did become commissioner of social services in the state of New York for a period of time. I did that for 12 years. Wonderful, wonderful experience, which I would never ever have had an opportunity to do unless I said yes to that interview. I could easily have said no to the interview, and it would have changed the course of the of my life probably. Then I went to Fordham. I came after 12 years. I ended up with Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield as a senior executive, and then I was asked to come to North Shore and recruited to come to North Shore Hospital way back in the early 90s as chief operating officer. Then we started to build a health system, and we started with 1 hospital, then 2 hospitals, and then it gradually expanded. And today we're the biggest provider of healthcare in New York State, the largest employer in New York State, and I've been CEO and president now for 22 years. And it's exciting, and I try to grow and expand and get better all of the time. And it's been, for me, something I never ever thought would really happen. But what's important is for people to continue always to aim high and go for the ultimate. Don't ever lower your expectations, raise your expectations, work very, very hard to get there. And if you have high expectations, you'll get further than you ever thought you could. And be positive and upbeat about it. And so I've been very, very, very fortunate, and I work with great people. And so what could be better? You're in the business of trying to improve people's lives and people's health, provide healthcare to people, make them better. And it's a wonderful opportunity to do good.
Absolutely. I want to talk about, you mentioned how Northwell, or you started with North Shore,
Yeah.
and then it turned to North Shore LIJ.
Yeah.
From people that aren't super familiar with the what's the word I'm looking for? Like acquiring of hospitals and growing the network system. From the outside, it just looks like Northwell's just buying up property and buying up hospitals and stuff. But from the inside, what you talk about in your books is the benefit of the connected health system. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we are more than hospitals, and this is very, very important for people to know. A lot of people think that places like us and other systems that were just all about hospitals. Now, we have a lot of hospitals. And so when we started with 1 hospital, and then other hospitals were in trouble in the neighborhood. Some of them were doing okay, and some of them were not doing well. So the idea was, could you get people to come together and work together? And if they work together and combine their efforts, could you do better than if you actually stayed separate and distinct? the answer is when you come together, you can do better, and if you do it the right way, and you can do more, and you can serve the community better. And so the first 10 years, it was all about adding hospitals. Each hospital is different. Each hospital has a unique background, a unique history. So bringing those hospitals in requires a little bit of a difference in how you deal with each one, because you've got cultural issues. And then we grew, but then we decided that healthcare is more than just what goes on in hospitals. And a lot of what did go on in hospitals could be better off done out in the community. So in our case today, which is what most people don't realize, we have 21 hospitals, but I've got 945 outpatient ambulatory locations. And that's the fastest part of our growth, because part of the idea is to bring care close to where people live, as close as you possibly can, where you can provide locally the best quality of care. As long as it is good quality, you do it locally. Certain things have to come into major hospital entities, like transplants or open heart surgery. You can't do that locally, but you can do that centrally. And then home care is important today. So we have the full range of services. We've got nursing home care, we've got home care, we've got outpatient care, we've got inpatient care. We've got everything. So the benefit is when you've got all of the pieces, you can connect the care for people along the continuum, because people's care just doesn't stop with a hospital. You're in a doctor's office, you're in an ambulatory setting, you're in a hospital, you're in physical therapy, you're in post-acute, etc. So it's the connectedness of all of the pieces. If you do it right, that I think benefits the community better. And I think we've done that. We're a little bit different than most other organizations because we're very, very integrated. All of the pieces do work together. But it's a continuous process to improve. You can't ever say that you got something completely right, because then you become complacent. So however good you do anything, there's always another level where you can do it better. So you keep raising the bar. It's like climbing a ladder. Life is like climbing a ladder.
Sure.
You start on the bottom rung, you go to the second rung, the third rung, fourth rung. In organizations, it's very much the same. People's careers are like that. And sometimes you fall off a rung, and then instead of getting depressed and frustrated, you get back on and climb again. And it's this process of climbing and falling and climbing and falling, success and some failure, success and some failure. And you learn from every failure, so failures help you how to become successful the next time.
Yeah.
Like I always recall Churchill's favorite statement. He said that success is going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. And that's life. Running a business in many ways is like life. It's good days, not so good days, progress, slow progress, quick progress, and then having to deal with the reality of what goes on each and every day.
So it sounds like part of the benefit of expanding as the Northwell system is it creates efficiency within the programs and everything. One of the things you also talk about in your books is the benefit to bringing doing a lot of things in-house. Could you talk about that and why you choose to bring things in-house rather than using outside companies?
Yeah. You can become more efficient, but also you can improve quality. When you bring different entities together and you mine the talents of everybody in every organization, you learn how to do things better. Also, you've got to be big these days, because as a health system, you've got to deal with big insurance companies. And you've got to be able to negotiate with them on an equal terms. If you're small, it's hard. If you're larger, you have more opportunity to sit across the table and negotiate as more equals. Bringing entities in-house is important. Many organizations outsource a lot of services. They'll outsource technology. They'll outsource purchasing. They'll contract with outside consultants. I like to bring those in as much as possible, because when you do so, you build your own talent. If you just outsource, the outsourced entity will charge you more. It'll be more expensive. Then they know they have the wherewithal to figure out how to do it. Your inside people don't know. So I would rather have that knowledge and that perspective inside the organization. It saves money. That doesn't mean you don't outsource at all. There are certain circumstances when you might want to do this. But I'm a big, big believer of taking out the middlemen, and because middlemen make a lot of money. I want to be the middleman, and I want to own the middleman. This is why we have our own GPO. That's why we have our own lab. That's why we have our own transportation, our own helicopter service, our own ambulance service. A lot of places will contract that out. But when I own it ourselves, we have more control. It gives more opportunity for employment for employees, etc. And we can move patients seamlessly from one place to the other without being dependent upon whether or not the outside contractor is available that day, can do it, not do it. And they also, if you outsource too much, you lose that sense of culture, that togetherness, that sense of community that you can do when you have it all inside. And so we've actually made mistakes on this. We outsourced on some occasions over the years. We outsourced technology once, IT, big mistake. We outsourced some other services and we found out that they don't do it as well as we do, and we can do it better. We hire the right people, we build the right culture, and we get the efficiencies and the money that they would have taken outside, we get to keep it inside.
I would assume that would lead to an upfront cost, though, buying the helicopters and everything, hypothetically. But in the long term,
well, yeah, everything has an upfront cost. I mean, your own personal life. You decide that you want to go for a nice interview for a new job. You got to buy a new coat, new suit, a new shirt.
Sure.
Why do you do it? You do it because you assume that if you look good at the interview or whatever the circumstance is, then if you do get the opportunity to be hired, then you get the money back. And in our case, the investments up front can be huge. So, for example, we are building a new outpatient cancer facility in Manhattan. It won't open for another year and a half. We had to buy the property. We had to build a facility. It's like a $500 million cost before we get any revenue. But when that opens and the revenue comes, we'll be a winner in that area, and it increases market share for us in that area, and we get it back. But that's normal business practice. I mean, if you're not willing to take the risk and invest up front, you're not going to get the benefit at the end.
I'd like to talk to you about your role as a CEO. So as the CEO, you have 85,000 people under you. How do you delegate? Like, what's your delegation?
90,000 now.
90,000, okay.
It'll be 105,000 in 2, 3 months, 4 months.
Wow, it's amazing. So with that being the case, how do you decide what you delegate and what you know about, what you choose not to know about because you trust your subordinates?
Well, the first thing you do is you hire good people, and you put good people into the right positions. And no success is ever a result of one person, no matter how important they think they might be. Some people think it's all about them. It's not. It's a team approach. We're very big into collaboration and teamwork. So you create an organizational structure, you put the right people in place, you give them the freedom to do what they know that they should be doing. You trust them because otherwise they shouldn't be in the position. And you give them the freedom to explore, to discover, and to do. And you watch it. You're like an orchestra conductor. I use often that analogy. What does an orchestra conductor do? He doesn't play the instruments, but he gets all the instruments to play together so that when they all do it as a collective, the music sounds wonderful. So in many ways, a CEO is like an orchestra conductor. You kind of guide the direction of the music. You guide the direction of the strategy. You dive into those things that need to be fixed when something really goes wrong, or something that you kind of dive in and fix something and help fix something, and then you dive out. The worst CEO is somebody who's involved in all of the detail all of the time, because you're taking away the opportunity for the people below you to have the freedom to do. And you also got to be able to tolerate people making mistakes, because making a mistake means you took some risk. You took some risk because you tried to do something new. And when you try to do something new, you're going to make a mistake. The biggest risk in life is being afraid to take one. So you kind of watch it. You stay focused on, obviously, the quality metrics of the organization, the financial metrics of the organization. And I spend a lot of time thinking about where we should be 5 years from now. Where should we be 10 years from now? Given everything that's going on in the healthcare marketplace, given everything that is going on nationally and internationally, and we watch these trends all the time, how do we position ourselves? And I believe that we've got to get bigger. We've got to have a larger footprint. We got to continue to grow and expand. We got to continue to grow ambulatory. We got to continue to use artificial intelligence more, et cetera, et cetera. So you keep your focus on those broad issues. And then you try to inspire people to do the best that they possibly can. Because leadership is about influence. It's about influencing people to do things and to get them to understand that they can do more than they think they can. That to me is the essence of leadership. And there's a good definition of leadership, which I've often used, which is leadership is about managing the present, which you've got to do because we live in today. It's about selectively forgetting the past. So there are things that you've always done that may not be relevant anymore. So you change. And then it's about creating the future. It's about thinking about where you should be 5 or 10 years from now. But if you have the right group of people who work as a team, right, and you have strong individuals who have strong egos, very, very talented, but understand that it has to be subservient to the team and the team approach. And you get everybody rowing in the same direction. And for those that don't want to row in the same direction, you decide that they don't want to be that they're not on the team anymore. So it's that kind of oversight that is very, 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 very important. And but the tendency is to avoid getting into the detail all the time. You dive in, you dive out, and you give your people the freedom to do their best. And when you do that, you attract good people. And good people, it's not about command. It's not about sitting out a series of directives. Do this, do that. It's about talking to people and to get them to want to do it. When people want to do it, they're loyal. It's getting them to believe in what you think is important. And it's about creating followership. Leadership is about following. If you've got nobody following you, if you look back and there's nobody behind you, you're not a leader. But it's also having a degree of humility, being down to earth, being decent, building trust. Trust is huge. Progress moves at the speed of trust.
Wow.
If I don't trust you, I'm not doing anything with you. If you break my trust, I'm not going to trust you the next time. That's relationships. We're in the relationship business. I mean, people complicate it a little bit too much, but you got to spend a lot of time with people, getting to know people, understanding their personalities, their character, what motivates them, what their world is like. Because I stopped every morning meetings around 6:30, 6:45 every morning with staff. I don't meet here. I meet in local diners. And why? I want to get to know the people. Because once I get to know you and you get to know me, we can work together. And sometimes people forget that. I have to know you and understand you and know what motivates you to get you motivated to do what I would like you to do.
So speaking of leadership and getting the right leaders under you, I want to quote one of your favorite poets, was William Butler Yeats.
Yeah.
So, but not the part that you quote in your book, a little farther down. That when I was reading the full poem, really stuck out to me. And it says, the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passion and intensity. And in that poem, he's talking about essentially people. He's talking about the best people are lacking of conviction and the worst people are full of intensity. So as a leader of one of the largest healthcare systems, how do you ensure that the right people are with you, both in competence and conviction? What's your hiring process look like?
Well, I'm very big into, as I said a few minutes ago, getting to know people. So I want to know what they're interested in. And it's something everybody should ask all the time. What motivates you? I often do this when I give some classes. I'll say, ask yourself the question, are you motivated by title, by power, by position, by status? Are you motivated by doing what's right and making a difference? So you want to know that you want in healthcare especially, you want people that are committed to making a positive difference in other people's lives. And you get to get a sense of that by talking to people, learning their background, finding out what they've done in the past. It's not about whether they have a top degree from a university or whether it was a 4.0 grade point average. I could care less about any of that kind of stuff. There's very little correlation between that, by the way, and long-term success. And you talk to people that you know about, the friends of people or relationships to people, etc. You'll discuss with them, and then you go with your gut at the end of the day. You have a sense this person is He's strong and humble. He's compassionate and caring, fiscally efficient, wants to be fiscally efficient, but somebody who cares. And one of the things I look for is positive attitude. I am big into hiring somebody who's positive about themselves, positive about what they can accomplish, positive about how they can build relationships with others, and positive about the work that they're doing. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to follow a skeptic or a pessimist. So you get people that are upbeat. And I tell you, if you talk to any of our leadership in this health system, you will leave it knowing that they have a very positive disposition. Attitude is a small thing that makes a big difference. And if you're positive, you can almost overcome anything. If you have an optimistic, DNA, no matter what comes in front of you, you'll figure out how to deal with it. Now, there are times when I have hired people or promoted people and put them in positions and it didn't work. Now, that doesn't mean that that person is a bad person. It means that they didn't work in that position, but they could possibly work in another position. So you move people around. But I've had situations where people, you bring people in, and I've done this because we all make mistakes. And the person interviews beautifully, meets all of the criteria that I just mentioned. You bring them in, and they just don't work out at all. So there are times when I have to, and I've done this, ask people to leave. And when people leave, we help them. We just don't, say, get out of here and forget about you. We try to help them because that's the way we should be anyway. The world is very, very small, people, as people always say, what's the old phrase? Be kind to the people as you go up because you're going to meet them as you're coming down. The attitude part of it to me, and the positivity and the optimism is huge. And then you want people that have resilience, that have an inquisitiveness, that are committed to learning more. I talked about this morning. We hire 200 to 250 people a week.
Wow.
And I meet them all. So I met this morning, every Monday morning I meet with all new employees that are hired here. And I spent 2.5 hours with them this morning. And I talked about this, about continuous learning, about aiming high, about being resilient, about not letting their current circumstance limit their future potential. Because where you are today is no predictor of where you can be in the future. I personally am a good example of that. And there are thousands and millions of examples like this. You aim high, you go this way all the time. You don't ever go this way. And you try not to stay like this. You aim high. And so you want people with that kind of an attitude. And you want people, lastly, you want people that are team players. That it's not about them. And it brings some people in and it's, I'm more important than everybody else. That person is not going to be successful here and probably will not be successful in most good organizations. It's like if you run a hockey team, if you have a player, and it's only about him and he won't pass the puck to the next guy, he might be the best puck handler in the place. He might be the best individual player, but he's not willing to play with the team. That person should be out because it creates, it destructs it breaks up the team culture, and the team is what makes it work. So here, we love working with each other, very strong-willed. There'll be disagreements, but when the decisions are made, everybody's on the team. But everybody is free to express their opinions. And I listen. You listen a lot. I mean, another thing with leadership is you need to speak a lot, but you need to listen more. Because when you listen, you'll hear a lot that you can't hear if you're only talking all the time. So you got to listen. I watch body language. Somebody can say something to me, but I know by looking at them whether they mean it or not. That's why you got to meet people in person. That's why technology is wonderful. But if you totally rely on technology, you don't get to know the people. And anybody on a Zoom can say anything, but you have no idea whether or not they mean it or not. But if I'm with you, you get a sense by how you say it and how you talk about it, that I know that there's a meaning behind it and you understand it and you're committed to it. And that's why I spend a lot of time individually with people, because we're in the human relationship business.
Yeah.
That's what healthcare basically is. And that's important.
So it sounds like the thread of that whole everything you just said is about culture and defining culture within the company.
Yeah, it's culture is personality. It's the personality of the organization.
Yeah.
What do you care about? How do you act? How do you behave? And today, in the world that we live in today, gives me an opportunity to talk about something I talk about a lot, but it's relevant to this discussion. I mean, values matter. The values of integrity and honesty and decency and trust, they matter. And if you have that among your team, especially the trust one and all of the others, you're going to get far. If your values are about anger and grievance and blaming the other person and anybody who disagrees with you is an enemy, and values of dislike and inequity, etc., that just breaks down that sense of community that you need to build. Because an organization essentially is a community. It's a community of people connected together by a common connected together by a common purpose and by common values, moving the ball downfield and making life better for everybody else. That's culture, and you've got to get people out and that don't believe in that culture. I think that one of the things about us at Northwell, I think, we have a positive culture. That's why a lot of people want to come here. It's about teamwork, it's about collaboration, it's about respect, and it's about decency, and it's about trust, as I said. And when you have that kind of a culture, you enjoy coming to work. Work is not work then, it's enjoyment. When you drive up and you see the people who are here before you, and you come into the office and you see the people that you like and care for and understand that they're on the same mission as you, that becomes something that encourages you to get better. You know, it motivates you to do more. And it creates that commonality of purpose, which is important.
In your book, Leading Through a Pandemic, you talk about the culture of preparedness that you guys have here at Northwell. And you also talk about how some people don't necessarily understand that culture of why would we spend money and time and resources on something that may never facilitate. So how do you, as the leader of the company, or as of Northwell, encourage people to get on the boat of the culture?
Well, it's pure common sense. I mean, it's like the old story, fix the roof when the sun is shining. You have a hole in your roof. Why wait until it rains? Fix it. You know it's going to happen, right? So it is foolish in the world that we're into these days to think that big bad things will never happen. You're hoping they'll never happen, but what happens if they do? And so we started talking about this. This goes back 20 years with us. Remember one time way back, even before I came here, there was a big airline crash not too far from here. And all of a sudden, all of those people, most of those people ended up at North Shore University Hospital. So I remember way back thinking, okay, we're located next to a number of airports, Kennedy, LaGuardia. Millions of people come in from all over the world every year there. What happens if there is a major crisis? What happens if there is a major weather storm, for example? So way before 9/11, we started to put together a disaster preparedness team. We actually held a conference here way back called Weapons of Mass Destruction. This was years before 9/11. And we decided we needed to be prepared for the inevitable of what could possibly happen. And we have people here who are very expert in this area. And we put together the plans and we put together the protocols. And we had lots of experience over time with Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Irene, etc. And we became one of the entities that was the preeminent entity in getting information for the state of New York even during those crisis times. And then when COVID occurred, I mean, we were watching out for the COVID issue months before. We were studying what was going on in Wuhan and in Italy. And we have a major, that's the word I'm looking for, in an office down the hall, we can actually track what's going on around the world on an ongoing basis. And so we started preparing for COVID, months before COVID arrived. But we had the infrastructure here. So my recommendation, it was in the book, is every organization has to build a disaster preparedness infrastructure when things are good, when you're not stressed about it, when you can actually think about it, rather than waiting and a crisis comes and all of a sudden you're running around like a dog without a tail, right? You're running around trying to figure out how to solve a problem that is right on top of you. You do it the other way. You plan it, prepare it. It's an investment, but smart CEOs and smart organizations do this because bad things will occur, and get prepared. And it's like, people in their own families, what do? They have a rainy day fund, right? If they can at all. They have kids that put their money aside for kids when the kid is 2 years old, right? You have a young kid, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to start putting money aside now on the assumption that when the kid gets 18 years old, he'll want to go to college, and you want him to go to college, and it's probably going to cost $5 million by then. All right, so it always looks that way. But why do you do that? You plan. It's in my mind, it's simple. It's a simple concept. But that means it's taking a long view of your organization. Many organizations that think quarter to quarter, they're short-term thinkers. You've got to think short-term, but you also got to think long-term. If you think long-term, you'll prepare for those things that potentially will happen long-term.
That's the perfect segue into my final question for you. You talk about looking into the future as a CEO. Where do you see Northwell in the next 5 to 10 years, and how do you plan to get there?
I see Northwell as the premier quality healthcare organization in the Northeast United States. We're now moving into other states, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, etc. It's one thing to get large, and we are large, and we're going to get much bigger. But you can get large, but you also need to get better all the time. So I see us as being a place where we are experts at preventing disease and promoting wellness. We are experts at treating disease once it occurs. And we are the premier place where people want to come to work, where we provide an enjoyable place so you can optimize your talents and optimize your potential, and be in a place that respects what you do, and a place where you can enjoy working and having a long career. So you want to be an organization that's number one in service. So when people come to you, you treat them as if they were your own parents. You treat them with respect. You listen, and everybody is a VIP. That's the kind of an organization. So how do we get there? Bit by bit. It's a building blocks. Expand your talent base, hire the best people, continue to build on the culture, continue to enhance your quality metrics, be innovative and creative all the time, because good organizations are innovative. It's like challenging the status quo, but figuring out and saying, like, we did this for the last 5 or 6 years and it works well, but it's not necessarily going to work well in the next 5 years. We're going to find a new way of doing it. That's creativity and innovation. And if you give people the freedom to innovate, they'll innovate. A lot of our ideas don't come from this office. They come from the ground floor of the organization. They come from the staff on the front lines. If you're waiting for all the good ideas to come from this office, you'd be waiting for a long time. So the question is how to be able to identify those good ideas and be able to mine them and feed them and grow them and fertilize them so that they can continue to percolate and blossom. And that's the kind of an organization we want to be. We want to be respected for doing what's right. And that's going to be very important in the world that we live in these days, is to be respected for doing what's right and have the courage to do what's right, and not be distracted by political ideology, of whatever kind, and we need to have a respect for science. So we do that what's right based upon science, and not about, as I said, political ideology. And so we're going to have an interesting ride. If you're in the healthcare business, we're going to have an interesting ride for the next couple of years. It'll be like, if you did any canoeing, flat water is nice, but for the next couple of years, we'll be in the rapids, and trying to avoid the rocks. But we're positive and optimistic, so we won't hit any rocks, and we'll go right through, and we'll move into smooth water. And along the way, doing that which is right for the public.
I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing what happens next with Northwell.
Thank you.
And for everybody that watched this, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you in the next video. If you are a business owner or you know any business owners that you think might be a good fit for this podcast, reach out and we'll talk to you soon. God bless.